So here we have to sketch the overall situation and development of India itself in order to show how Indic Buddhism came into full blossom around 500 of the Common Era, as the Mahayana's esoteric vehicle of the Tantra, which I call apocalyptic vehicle, in the sense of apocalyptic in the sense of meaning immediate revelatory vehicle. The removing of the veil is what apocalypsos means in ancient Greek. So it brings into immediacy something that's thought of as a remote goal, in other words. And this begins to emerge into public consciousness due to the maturity of Indic society in relative peacefulness. Remember, which always goes along with vulnerability. That's always the case. And this is very important to see this history in this way, because Indian history has been taught in the wrong way, as if it is a process of decay, both by Indians with their Kali Yuga sort of thing, and by the British with their white man's burden sort of feeling, legitimizing their conquest in the 17th through the 19th centuries. But so we must emphasize that they think that the vulnerability of India in 1000 of the Common Era is a sign of India's decadence, whereas from the perspective of the Buddhist tradition, which was totally interwoven with the development of Indic civilization for 1500 years by then, the vulnerability and the lack of militarism is a sign of the sophistication and the development and the positive nature of Indian society. More positive than today, where we're still riddled with militarism worldwide. So anyway, during this period, the full panoply of experiential teachings and practices became more widely available to the Indian public. The following table will help us see how the Buddhist programs of ethics, education, and sciences have permeated Indic civilization in the millennium since the Buddha's time, in the three periods, 500 to 1 to 0 of the Common Era, 0 to 500 of the Common Era, 500 to 1000 of the Common Era, those three periods, which fit with the three vehicles. The Buddhist various arts, the upayas, that is the methods that encourage experiential engagement, exploring the implications of the logic of relativity, whereby, due to the emptiness of the absolute, all things are pure relativity. This discovery based on that logic of emptiness makes relativity imperative for the individual human, and makes that human to want to take responsibility for shaping oneself and one's world into the best of all possible world, that is also one's society, and committing one to strive toward love and compassion for one's fellow beings. If you're stuck with them all forever, how do you want to be with the living beings? You don't want to hate them. You don't want them hating you. You want to love them because you want them to love you. So that's obvious if you're not going to ever get away from someone. You're going to try to be the best possible way of coexisting with them. And there's no better way than mutual love, is there now? So now, the individualist style I mentioned in this table, I don't want to read it all, and the universalist style is there, and those styles are seen in this table as sociological. You know, the first one really emphasizing breaking down the monistic idea of the caste system, where it's all one, but I'm the warrior boss and you're my servant, and therefore you can feel happy because you're one with me, but you're actually the feet of God, so God is actually standing on you. I'm the arms of God and the chest and the heart, and the Brahmins is maybe the mouth of God, speaking the Vedic language, and the belly of the God are the merchants, but you guys are the legs and the feet, you know, you're down under there. And yet it's okay because it's all one. So in that context, the first method sociologically is to develop individualism, teach dualistic Buddhism primarily, make the individual feel they're separate, intensify the individual's feeling of being separate from the collective, and thereby develop freedom from suffering just for themselves. It's necessary to develop that, to break down the oppressive collectivism of the caste system. And then once that took 500 years, Buddha said, based on the monastic institution being in the center, the asylum, the place for people to escape from the caste system, from all classes, to begin learning, to create a different vibe, to become more connected to each other, to reach a higher ethical level, and so forth. That's the first level. The second level is when that becomes strong enough, as I mentioned before, not because it's weak or isolated, but because it becomes strong enough that it can reach out from there and begin to criticize the way of behavior of the lay people and say, no, just as long as you support the monastery, you can behave any way you like. No, you have to start behaving better, and you can practice also as lay people. You can be bodhisattvas, and also sometimes monks can get stuck in being monks. And so the non-dualist thing then can come back on top of the balance of the old monism and the new individualism. And then you get the non-dualist Mahayana universal vehicle ideal of the bodhisattva, and you begin to really change the full scale of the society. And then finally, right in the heart of that non-dualism, the messianic thing, comes the working with the unconscious of the being, not just the conscious sort of intellectual level, but dealing psychologically with the unconscious. And this has to be kept esoteric in the earlier periods, because people would go crazy if they sort of had to cope too soon with Eros and Thanatos in the unconscious, which Freud only thousands of years later brought out into focus. Basically with a very few people, even today, people resist totally that there's Eros and Thanatos in themselves. Most of the people still do. And so but in India, it was so developed by the universal vehicle by around 500 of the Common Era that they began to become academically available in the universities, and then become socially more widely available through the life of the Siddhas, the great adepts. And the ideal of the great adept, the Siddha, the one who becomes a Buddha already, not waiting thousands of bodhisattva lifetimes to become a Buddha, but becomes a Buddha and manifests as a Buddha as a more ordinary person, like the great adept, the psychonaut, what I call. This is the third period, and this is the high point of Indian civilization and of Buddhist civilization, reached about 1100 of the Common Era.